We are now up to the report of our administrative officer and our director of finance.
Yeah.
Tony.
I'm going to borrow your microphone if you don't mind. Thanks. Thank you very much. I have our monthly report through February of 2014, and it's essentially it's a slight surplus of about $4,000 for the end of the year, so it's essentially an even budget. Brings our fund balance to $4.3 million, or 9.5% of our total budget. In intergovernmental revenues, we have experienced a surplus of about $136,000 this year. We have a $120,000 surplus in town road aid that we've been speaking about all year, and $40,000 from some revenue sharing grants that we didn't anticipate. There were some slight shortfalls in some state pilot accounts that offset that to result in a $136,000 surplus. So there's a series of ups and downs in this budget. Department revenues are projected to experience a shortfall of $667,000. And as you are probably all aware, the majority of that, at $788,000, is from golf course revenues. And we do anticipate experiencing a surplus of $121,000 in conveyance fees, town clerk fees, and zoning permits, as those are all trending slightly ahead of budget. So combination of the $788,000 deficit in golf fees combined with $121,000 surplus in some other accounts gives us our shortfall of about $667,000. Interest income is continuing to run below our projections, and it has a shortfall of about $20,000. In our expenses, the Country Club of Woodbridge are anticipated to have a surplus of about $367,000. This is as a result of the contract for Billy Casper going through 6 months, and then $95,000 for the new contract. There's also $49,000 in clubhouse fees and a deficit of $100,000 that was transferred last meeting, if you all remember. But we had budgeted for a full year of golf course expenses. So as a result of budgeting for a full year of expenses, but only having half a year of complete expenses, and then these others that I explained, we have a surplus of about $360,000 in our golf course account. Our waste management has a surplus of about $45,000 due to reduced tonnage, particularly in our municipal solid waste, and some recycling tonnage is lower than our estimates were at the beginning of the year. Employee benefits, a $65,000 surplus, mostly in healthcare. Some changes in coverage types, mostly from employees from family to single. And finally, in the police department, we are over budget in overtime. As you've probably heard, there's a shortage in the department, but we continue to work with the chief's office to hopefully fund that and some surplus in wages that we have this year as a result of those shortages. So we're working closely on that to make sure that that we monitor that situation. So those are some of our highlights.
Questions for Tony?
Yeah, real quick. I just want to be clear on the country club.
The expenses?
Well, the surplus is a surplus because we budgeted more expenses than
Correct.
what we're going to
That's
have.
right.
I don't want it to be understood.
It's not a surplus.
It's not
in
a surplus of
totality.
operations.
No, because the
Correct.
revenues were a shortfall of
Right.
$788,000.
Yeah, right. And
Right.
we don't know what the revenues are going to be through to June 30th either, right?
Right. There are no more revenues.
That's
It's just
true.
revenues
That's true.
through
Okay, so-
December, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
really, in totality, it's a deficit of 300.
Deficit.
7, 6, 8, yeah, $400,000.
400 deficit.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear.
Okay.
Actually, I have a question to follow up that. Can you spell out, Tony, for me, when you wrote, in addition, the town will incur about $49,000 in expenses, God bless you.
To the clubhouse.
For the
Those are
clubhouse,
the-
what are those?
Those
can you
are
break down?
primarily heating. As a result of the new contract, we are responsible for all clubhouse expenditures beginning on January 1st. So we had some
they're not
heating,
necessarily any repairs.
electricity. No, those are mostly utilities and
Not
stuff to
really
keep the
related,
right.
but no repairs.
There's some minor repairs in there,
Okay.
related to some repairs that the fire marshal indicated we had to do, namely some
So in regards to repairs such as the ones that Recreation has.
Correct, right.
We will be seeing that in the future if when
Right.
they're incurred.
Correct, so if there's other repairs that are required, as you go each month, you'll see them in the budget,
And
and
this
they'll
is
be
where you're
reported.
gonna put them into.
Correct, correct.
Anything else? Okay. Next item is tax refunds. Pat Crisco is recommending a refund of property taxes in the amount of $14,311.99. Is there a motion to approve this refund? Second. Any questions or discussion? We'll wait 1 minute for Susan. Sorry?
Joe.
Jill? You moved that?
Yes, I did.
And
Yeah,
let, Lawrence, you second.
No. No.
Okay. Yeah, I think we'll just go ahead and vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Woodbridge Animal Control Report,
Funding requests.
Funding.
funding requests. Right, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, guess I would have liked to skip that. Okay, the first item is line item transfer number 1314-18. Do you want to describe that, Tony?
Sure. These are the, this is a transfer within the, actually, this answers your question from the previous question. These are the transfers from within the golf course department itself, from the golf course expense fees, which were supposed to be paid towards the Casper operation, to each of the individual expenditure lines that are in the facility. So you'll see, if you look at this page here, this is the $49,000.
We didn't get anything out of that.
That's one of the reasons why I asked. I don't think I have any of that in our package.
It's under funding requests.
It's under funding request.
You don't have,
We
you
don't-
don't
I
have the
don't
funding
have
request?
requests.
What are you looking at? What's right
Do you have
underneath
other
there?
funding requests?
It's after this
Department of this
page.
is the animal control. Anybody
Yeah.
else get it?
No, animal control was just handed out this evening.
Right.
You misplaced it.
I didn't get
No,
it.
no.
Who has it?
Well, I don't have, I printed out.
Do you have it?
Do you
have the funding request?
I'm just looking for it.
I don't think we will.
They were PDFs, yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay,
All right.
Susan's got it. Well,
I have 1314-8.
That's it?
Right.
can you,
Okay.
Beth, Joe, and I have,
You
just
don't
see
have
it
them?
for a second?
That's
I'm on the other side.
Yeah,
and all of a
That side of
sudden-
the
This
table.
side,
Should have
so
moved
if we
over
could
there.
just see it, or we do share it for a second, that'd be great. But that's one of the reasons why I didn't see it
You
in
want
our
me to make copies?
No, we can look at it and we can make copies.
Yeah.
Here, why don't you take mine? I'll share with Tony.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have it, Lawrence?
Lawrence didn't get it either, yay.
Ah.
I printed it out, and
Oh, so
the
you-
whole packet in it, I don't know.
It didn't come.
Did you
Right.
print
No,
it out,
Lawrence
Susan?
didn't get it
I
either.
have Jerry to print it out because.
Yeah,
Ah,
it didn't come.
Didn't come to
that's
us.
how you got it.
Sorry.
Right, no, exactly.
Okay,
I found
It's
it.
okay.
Does everyone now have access
Yeah, yeah.
to
Fine,
reviewing the
good.
documents?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Is there a
Okay.
motion
Thank
to
you.
approve transfer 1314-18 in the amount of $49,000? I'll make the, thank you, second.
Second.
Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Next is, I'll make a motion that we approve line item transfer number 1314-19 in the amount of $33,000. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Tony, do you
there's some
want-
explanation, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is actually in two parts that had to be broken down into a line item transfer and a funding request. The total of $113,000 is to cover sand, salt, and overtime and gas as a relation to the winter that we've just had.
Right.
So the $33,000 comes from the department itself, and there's a surplus in their salary line is due to some vacancies and some injuries as a result of that. So that's a $33,000 transfer. from salaries to overtime. So that's the first one.
Okay, any other questions on that transfer?
So this
Yes.
one is just the interdepartmental.
Correct.
That's-
We always try to, when we have a situation in the department, to find as much from the department as possible. So that's what this is for.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
That's the 33.
Right,
That's perfect, Tony.
okay. Sorry. The next is from contingency.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve funding request number 1314-20 in the amount of $80,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tony. You want to-
So this is the remainder of the transfer. This is for overtime, sand, salt materials, and gas. And we had, if you see the memo from Cindy, 14 snow and ice events this year, and some of which were 24 hours in operation, as you've all witnessed. And we're happy to, that we were able to, with contingency and careful planning in the department, cover all these expenses. And this is a good example of why we try not to use contingency money until after the snow season.
I believe you previewed this for us last.
We did.
That
Warned us.
you
Yeah.
knew this was coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, right,
So
Susan.
where's our contingency?
So the contingency now is at $21,000.
So you're.
Tony promises no more snow,
No,
no
just
more
well-
ice or snow.
No more
We're,
snow.
we're good
No
with the
more ice.
material,
Any
sand,
more
salt
snow,
material.
you grab a shovel.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move right along here. This is
Okay.
the stub budget.
Okay, I'll move approval of line item transfer number 1314-21 in the amount of $45,455. Tony?
Sure. This is the rec department budget, which
Oh, I
is,
didn't get a
you
second.
referred to.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
please
go ahead.
second, yes. Okay, Tony.
This is the rec department stub budget that was discussed earlier. And the budget is for the pool operation from March 30th through June 30th, excuse me. And it covers a number of items, including seasonal wages, uniforms, professional services to open the pool, and will be transferred from pool fees. So the fees raised for the operation of the pool will be transferred to cover this cost. Because the fees will be, you prorate the fees based on the fiscal year, like we do with camp fees, we do with a number of other fees. Because it covers 2 fiscal years, so we'll take it and we'll cover it with those fees. So we're gonna use fees from the operation to pay for the first couple months of the operation.
Susan, you have a question?
No, no.
Oh, any questions?
I'm just following the
Anyone?
path.
And this is strictly through June 30th.
Correct.
Start
Then the next fiscal year's in the budget.
Because I
And
noticed some of their.
those fees will then be budgeted from July 1 to June 30th of next year. So it's sort of a split.
It should be sort of a lopsided share for this portion through June 30th, right? The fees,
We're not gonna, we'll prorate it based on the number of
you were
months.
gonna receive them, I know, in July,
We'll receive them, most of them probably in May, I would imagine.
but you'll receive them in July, is what you explained.
The fees?
For accounting purposes.
No, what we'll do is we split the revenue on books based on
Right.
the number of months. So essentially half of them would be, I have to count the weeks now. So 4, 5, 6, 6 weeks would be in one year, and the remainder would be in the other year.
So the revenue is reflected in 15.
Right.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
One more?
I need the top page. Okay, I'll move the acceptance of line item transfer number 1314-22 in the amount of $5,000. Is there a second?
second.
Thank you. Tony?
There's a letter from Cindy Pecca. This is within the Department of Waste Management for a State of Connecticut DEP wastewater permit fees for the firehouse and for the new Public Works garage, as well as inspections and application of general permit for the highway garage.
Any questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anything else, Tony?
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Ellen, here you go. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the animal control report. Tony?
There are 2 items for this report. First is the activity for the month of February. We're 41 calls responded to, 14 in Bethany, 12 in Derby, 15 in Woodbridge. 2 dogs from Derby were picked up and redeemed to owners. 3 dogs in Derby, 2 dogs in Bethany, and 1 dog in Woodbridge were adopted. There are 3 cats, 2 dogs, and a rabbit at the shelter, as of the printing of this report, actually. There were 120 people that visited. We keep a log of folks that visit the animal shelter, and 148 calls.
How are we doing finding the fourth town?
We are having some good progress.
Okay. These numbers aren't getting any better.
We're making some good progress. It typically gets busier in the spring.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
There's another item for this. You should
Oh,
have the
I'm sorry, I
resume.
don't have these documents. That's all right.
We have we would like to.
Why don't you just go ahead.
Yep, request that we, on a part-time basis, hire another animal control officer to help with our staffing, so that, at least in the short term, as you are aware, we have 1 full-time ACO that works and 1 part-time ACO, and we'd like to hire another to be able to have some more diversity in our staffing and to be able to cover our staffing needs. Her name is Dawn Buffone. She's currently an ACO in Branford. Comes highly recommended. We've checked her references and interviewed her, and we'd like to make that recommendation.
So what, how much did I miss?
This is just to help us because we have a staffing issue with the ACO where we have
Are we
1
gonna pay
officer
it?
that's on currently on paid leave. So we have 1 full-timer and 1 part-timer.
Yeah,
But
Are we?
we'd like to bring
paying
it
her?
up.
Hours?
What's that?
Are we paying her?
Is
You're the
it
one
paid
who decides
position?
what we're paying her.
Are we
Oh,
paying her?
What's the
yeah,
salary?
yeah. Oh, you want to know how much she's getting paid?
Well, how many hours, you know?
How- what's
that-
the-
Probably, we're thinking like 10 hours for one and 10 for the other. It depends on availability and, they're part-time, so some.
10
some-
for the other of the current,
The
you're like
existing-
Yeah.
taking the
the
person
existing
and splitting it
Correct.
a little bit.
Right.
Okay.
So we're splitting it a little more
Mhm.
Okay,
to
so the
provide for
current-
more flexibility in case some, one person can't make it. And we're not gonna increase the number of hours that's
Okay.
there.
So there's
We're
no budget
diversifying,
impact.
right?
No, there's no budget
budget
impact.
impact.
No,
Budget
For
no,
your
no.
piece, yep.
No budget impact. This is just to have the same number of hours, just with 2 people instead of 1.
Thank you,
Right.
that helps.
Yeah,
Okay.
We were all barking up the wrong tree on that one, I can.
No way to
Is there-
Oh,
is-
boy.
Is there a motion to approve the hiring of
motion.
Dawn Buffon? Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a good
Any other
resume.
questions?
It looks like a
All those in
dog.
favor?
Yes.
Anything
Okay.
else on animal?
Animal-friendly
Nope,
person.
that's it.
You need these back?
Okay.
I like
No,
it.
you can have those.
Next item, Tony, do you want to speak to the filming in Woodbridge?
Oh, right. So we received a call from the state of Connecticut that a reality-based television program would like to film in Woodbridge, mostly scenic shots. They won't tell us more than that, other than they recommend it and that they're scenic shots, and they may be on town property on occasion. So we had them forward an insurance certificate naming us as additional insured, but it would just be for scenic views as they drive throughout the town.
So just in an excess of caution,
As-
is there a motion to approve?
Right.
Should they come on town property?
So moved.
In case they probably won't, but in case they have to,
I'll second it for discussion. When I saw it, I didn't know if it was the one we had.
it's a different one.
No.
Apparently, it's a different one.
Right, it was contacted by the State Department of
There's
Film
no
and
impact on roads or
something.
anything. I mean,
No,
it's
no
gonna be
impact on roads,
Using our scenery.
right,
Using-
driving by and taking
Drive-by
photos.
shooting.
Right.
With no royalty.
That sounds bad,
Right.
shooting.
It's not that I'm
So
aware
they're
of.
not calling
Police are
for a
here,
reality
sorry.
show to take my family?
No, no.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is related to the Beecher Road School project. And this is a request to authorize the first selectman to execute a notice to proceed. We have not yet executed the contract with ESG for the Beecher Road School project, but they have asked us to approve this notice to proceed so that they can begin the work. They can have the services of the engineer and the architect and order some materials that will, in order not to delay the project. The costs that we are approving in advance will not exceed $175,000. And the, in the packet is the letter that they sent us requesting that I sign it. This letter says that the $175,000 will become due if a final agreement is not executed by March 19th, 2014. It is my intention to take out the date and state instead if a final agreement is not executed between ESG and the town of Woodbridge, because it's not certain at what point we'll execute the contract. It's quite a lengthy and complex contract which we've just received, and we're still reviewing it. So it might not happen that
I
quickly.
don't think we have the entire contract.
Oh, we may
yet
not
either.
even have it all
Right.
yet. I'm not sure about that. But we don't want to hold up the project, and it's $175,000 worth of commitment that we would be making in
And at
advance.
some point, the entire contract is something we're all gonna see anyway, correct?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
We approve that.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? Anything else? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, former firehouse, Tony?
This is more of an FYI for you, but the former firehouse committee has approved of a budget and has requested for our capital budget an amount of $1.2 million for renovations for the interior of the old firehouse. And because budget is already at the Board of Finance, this is more of an FYI for you. This is an example of something that at $1.2 million, I would imagine the Board of Finance would put as a long-term bonding project and not a project they would pay for with tax dollars, cash. But that would be their decision to entertain this request in light of the budget. And I just wanted to give you an FYI that this in fact came to us because you had reviewed the budget previously.
Is it getting plugged into 2015 capital, to the capital
That would be
budget
their
slide?
decision.
That would be Board of Finance
Yeah,
decision?
as to where they
Okay.
want to put it in and how much they want to put it in
Okay.
for, and if they want to put it in at all,
Okay.
really.
Did we see that when we looked at them?
No, this just came in like within the last week.
We
So it was
didn't get
late.
a chance to review and
Right, but
suggest
if it's a
to-
bonded project, it's like the other issue we had, it would have to go through the process anyway. This is would be for a planning, right.
Is there insurance included in that 1.2 or not? I can't remember.
No, this is the gross.
Okay.
So we have maybe $230,000 in insurance proceeds remaining from this. So the net would be the amount you would borrow.
Right.
That would be from the fire.
Correct.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Tony.
It's inescapable.
Authority to lock in fuel bid, I don't think that's in the packet.
It's not,
right?
there's no
That
handout
came-
for that.
Okay.
But if those who are on the board, were on the board last year, remember, every year we lock in fuel, which is typically heating oil, diesel, and gas. And when we lock it in, we have basically very little amount of time to actually commit to it. So what we do is we bid this with Bethany, Orange, Woodbridge, and the Amity, and the Board of Ed of Orange and the Woodbridge Board of Ed. It's a regional purchasing cooperative bid that the town of Woodbridge runs. And so we like to get approval to lock in beforehand because when we lock in, the market rates change.
Right.
And so that's the request.
Is there a motion to authorize the first selectman to lock in the fuel bid? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're at item number 8, adopt Homeland Security Memorandum of Agreement Resolution. And Deputy Chief Stewart, if you're here, would you mind just describing that to us?
It's just it's a boilerplate type of resolution. You've signed that, or the previous selectmen have agreed to the first selectman as a signatory for any spending of any money that's done through the states of Homeland Security. So it's just giving you the authorization. It's been signed or agreed upon, I think, the last 8 years. Each town of the 30 towns in the region have to come up with an agreement. And that's basically what it is. It's just the authorization for you to sign for the town of Woodbridge any spending or any type of agreement that might be made within the region of the 30 towns.
Thank you. Is there a motion to authorize the first selectman to adopt Homeland to sign the agreement as described? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. Is this a condition preceding to getting FEMA reimbursements? Do you have to be a part of this memorandum of understanding? No?
Is this related to FEMA reimbursement in any way?
No, I don't think so.
Just curious, thank you.
I just
Joe?
have I guess a point of order. The last one, as I read this, the last clause doesn't seem to be grammatically correct. Not that it's a big deal, but we might want to change it.
It's canned language from the state.
I don't think you could
That
change it.
makes sense then.
Explains it all.
Any other comments?
We move on.
Every board has said, made the same remark.
Maybe we'll suggest it to them. Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next item is a presentation by the police department. Chief Marcucci. Now, we invited the Board of Finance to attend. I don't think a notice of a special meeting was called, but Karen is here. If you'd like to sit up here, Karen, I'm sure you could join us if you want to ask questions. If there's anyone else from the Board of Finance, I don't see. I don't think so. You know, we have had requests. Joe in particular has asked about further information to really understand the structure and overall scope and size of the police department. And so tonight, hopefully, we'll be able to answer all the questions, and the chief will give us an overview of the department.
We had a PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if you really want to see a PowerPoint presentation in the police department. Basically, I'm kind of here to answer any questions that you have about the police department. Now, I know Joe had concerns about the capital budget.
Yeah, I don't know, the agenda.
Okay,
It doesn't matter to me. You proceed any way you.
well, I'm just here to answer questions. I mean,
Okay. Well,
You know,
no presentation. Okay.
Chief, I think it would be helpful to at least describe the structure of the department to start.
we'll put it
And
up.
then we'll,
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want.
Yeah.
maybe just
Might as well.
show one or two slides.
Sure,
just to show
sure.
what,
Okay.
Did they find the guys?
I apologize, we weren't really gonna show this tonight. All right, we had made the decision that we weren't gonna show it, but,
You don't have to show
because
it
I
on
think
mine.
it's important that you know, it's a little bit of an education about the department, it's how we're structured.
Ray, I don't think you need to do, I know you had a lengthy presentation that you've done for the Citizens Academy, but perhaps you could just put up the organizational chart for starters, so everybody can understand the makeup of the
I mean, those
department.
are-
There you go.
Yeah.
There it is.
Go ahead.
Just to,
Up,
down.
Yeah, and then how do you?
This goes forward.
She's not mechanical. Other skills, yes, but not mechanical.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna provide you a copy of this whole presentation. All right, so you can take it home, you can,
Perfect. Good.
digest it a little bit. But this is the, how the department is set up. Obviously, you have the chief at the top, just above the chief would be the Board of Police Commissioners. It's a 5-member panel that's appointed by this group, Board of Selectmen, that oversees the chief. You come down, you have myself, the deputy chief, the lieutenant, our patrol division, which is made up of 17 officers that cover both the, well here, I'll go right to this. This is filling in the blanks type of thing for the operational, or for the organizational chart. As you can see, again, the chief, myself, the lieutenant oversees the patrol division, which is made up of A squad. We have a sergeant on that with 3 officers. We have B squad, sergeant, 3 officers. We also have a vacant for that squad. That's one of the officers that we have in the academy. We have C squad, which has a sergeant assigned to that squad, and we have 3 officers assigned to that. We have a vacancy of that. We have an officer in the academy right now. Both of those individuals, they should be retiring, or should be graduating from the academy in July. We actually have a third vacancy that'll fill the sergeant's vacancy that will graduate on Friday, so we'll have him. And now he still has to go through 10 weeks of in-service training, so we still have to wait almost a little bit over 3 months for him to
Wait, before you leave
get
that
certified.
slide, can
No,
you
sir.
explain what the squads are and what 1800 to 0200
Okay, I
means
was
and what
gonna
that?
do. 3 squads. A squad, that's from 11 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning. B squad, obviously, is from 7 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. C squad is from 3 o'clock to 11 o'clock. We have, by contract, I believe it was back in 2002, we did a little reorganization. We had a 5th sergeant. We brought a sergeant that was over at Beecher Road, or not Beecher Road School, over at the high school as an SRO. We brought him in and we put him right in as one of our sergeants to fill in for supervision from 1800 or 6 o'clock in the evening until 2 o'clock in the morning. We felt that was the most essential time to have an additional supervisor. What you have to understand, what I've indicated down here at the bottom, the officer's working 5-2, 5-3 schedule. That means they work 5 days, they're off 2, they work 5 days, and they're off 3 days. So their schedule is always progressing throughout the week. And then we have to fill those positions with these officers. We also have by contract, we also have 2 officers that are unassigned, where the lieutenant, who does the scheduling for the department, can put them just about anywhere he wants. But you know, sometimes it's difficult because you don't want that officer to be working, let's say, 11 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the morning, or 11 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning, and then have to turn around and come back. So it's, you know, we have consideration of that. We don't want to, you know, burn out any officers or make it unsafe. So, but he can fill in to any vacancies that are caused by the absence of these officers right now. We have 6 dispatchers, all right, and for the first time since I've been here, we've had a full complement of dispatchers. I think if you talk to the finance director, you can see that we're clearly, it clearly is affected on our budget for overtime for dispatch. It might seem like a lot of dispatchers, but it is a full complement, and it really helps us out a lot having that. Over here on the right-hand side, we have the Investigative Services Division. We have a sergeant assigned to that, but that's not his only duty. He's actually our administrative sergeant, and he has responsibilities of, he's our PIO, he's our media relations officer, he's our court liaison officer. He takes care of, and this is beyond the responsibilities that he has as a detective sergeant. He's our court liaison officer. He takes care of all the domestic paperwork that comes down, the protective orders, the restraining orders. He has to make sure that those get all posted on a daily basis. He also takes care of all our pistol permits. And over the last year and a half, that's been a big job. I think we went from having maybe 3 pistol permits a month. Now we're probably doing 15 or 16 a month. So it's become a bigger job. He has 2 officers assigned to him as detectives. One works a 7 to 3, and the other one works a 8 to 4. They overlap a little bit, so we have that they can be on call at the end of the day. We have an officer, Officer Rizzuti. He's our SRO. He's assigned to the high school as our SRO. He's a liaison over there. He's not a hall manager or a hall monitor. He's not doing discipline for the school, but he does make arrests when it's warranted over there. He acts as a police officer, and then he teaches constitutional law to the students. He's actually part of the curriculum over at the high school. And he's got a pretty good job. We've had him over there, I think, we started off with a COPS grant that put him over there, and he's been over there, I think, we've had an SRO over in the late 90s. Just last year, we've had a DARE officer over at Beecher Road School since the 90s. The DARE officer ordinarily would teach a 12, well, they started with a 10-hour class, they teach a 12-hour class now.
Weeks.
Oh, I'm sorry, weeks, 12-week course. And obviously after what's happened over the past year and a half, we've put him over there full time. It's the police presence, police security. They're doing a lot of things, a lot different over there. And it really just makes sense to have the police presence over there for the kids and the faculty, student, and parents. We have a officer assigned to statewide, the SNATF is statewide narcotics task force. They're part of a narcotics group. They deal with both federal and state narcotics arrests, investigations throughout the year. Like I said, obviously he's confidential. We benefit from him. We get a stipend from him from being in that unit. I won't mention what the stipend is, but we do get that, and then we get a percentage of any case he works on. And another important thing about him is that if Officer Rizzuti has any drug-related cases over at the high school, he's the individual that's going to follow him up. We make the arrest for the use. The investigating officer with statewide narcotics, they're looking for the supplier. So he follows up on all arrests that are made there. And then we have a full-time records clerk that does all the paperwork, all the reports that have to go down to court. And then we have a part-time mechanic who puts all the equipment in the cars and works on our cars. We have 18 cars in our fleet. And he stays pretty busy, but he's part-time. And just one of the other caveats to his responsibility is that if we ever have a fatal, he's the individual that does the mechanical inspection on our vehicles when they're impounded. And that's the organizational chart of the department. I don't think there's really anything else. I could go through a bunch of the other.
I think the rest we can look at and ask about. Yeah. Thank you.
Could I just make one other point?
Sure.
I know it's been a while. One of the other points I just want to make is that if you look at these individuals here, it's just, and I put dates below their names. We have, and I just wanted to make a point as far as like somebody like Officer Prentice. We get officers that are pre-certified. They come over from other departments. That's 25 years on the department. They're subject to retirement after 5 years. They're invested. And if you just take a look, like a little, and you're going to get a copy of this. Take a look at, some of the dates, and it just puts some things in perspective. That's the only last point I wanted to make.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah.
Tony?
I'll start with one question, just because I was looking at that chart for a while. There were 34 names on that chart. 6 of them were dispatchers. And then the administration assistant, is that considered an officer?
I'm mistaken.
There were 6 dispatchers.
Yep.
I'm assuming those don't, they're not
Civilians.
considered officers.
Right.
And then there was one administration assistant. Is that also not considered an officer?
Administrative assistant? Oh, that's our assistant.
But that's not considered an officer.
No.
So is it that there is 27?
We have 26, top to bottom. 26 from the chief down to our lowest officer.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out where that other name is. There was 34 total names. Is there? I saw the 6 dispatchers and 1 administration assistant.
Part-time record.
The records clerk? Was it a records clerk?
It's not spelled out from here, so I can't tell you.
You can tell me what you're looking at.
I'm looking at the chart that you had up on the screen for a while. And obviously this is the administration assistant. See, they're not marked on here, but I know these are the dispatchers.
Yep.
So what other is not an officer here? I know these spots are coming.
Tricia Monaco and Joe Harper.
They're
That's
not-
our mechanic, that's our records.
Okay, so that's how you get down to this.
Yeah.
So you're including in the officers the ones that are in training or.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I don't really have any questions. The email I had sent to you, I had asked that we have a line item for the police department to look into the scope, the size, and all of the policemen. That was really based on the fact that going through the budget process, I see that we're pretty close to $3 million now in our police budget. And there was another officer that they were asking for and so forth. And in addition to that, there was, I think it was 5.2 million that we were going to see in the next couple of years or so for proposed renovations to the police department. Although when I talked to the chief, I don't know if that's really what they're looking for in terms of the next years or it's going out. But that was the genesis of why I thought that perhaps as a board, we should take a look at the police department, its composition and the budget and so forth, because we're gonna be asked, you know, the budget is growing, the operational, and we're gonna be asked to spend money on a renovation. The issue is, do we need to spend that money, some other money? Is the size, is the police department the proper size? Is it too small? Is it too big? Before, as a town, we decide to spend 5.5 or 5.2 or 6 or whatever it is, it seems prudent to me to take a look at the police department, particularly in light of budget constraints. So that's why I thought we could have that discussion. In preparation for that, I've developed some information that I have that's objective information, comparison of police departments in the area. I don't know if you want me to share that now or that's some other.
Well, certainly, if you have any questions, I think this is the time to ask them. And what we've looked at, as I understand it, maybe Chief, you can speak to this, the size of the police department, you know, has it greatly increased or decreased over,
No.
let's say, the last
No.
10 or 15 years?
No.
Can you?
No, we remain the same. The problem that we have with the police department is, and Tony alluded on it before, is we are never at full contingent. We have 26 top to bottom. In the 10 years that I've been back, I think we may have been at full contingent for a week. We've always had people out injured, so workers' comp picks up the slack on that, and then we pay 20%, I think. So we've always had surplus in our officers' line item. Right now, we're working with 8 police officers and 2 sergeants out of our entire police force, because we have people in different places, and we have 3 people that are out injured. So right now, we're real low. Can we use another officer? Yeah, absolutely. We can always use another officer.
I'd like to just jump in and say that it's very unusual to be this low, and it's not a good thing, and we're doing everything we can to make sure that it's a very short-term period, and it's not the ideal. So basically, to answer your question, Joe, about the size of the department, the point of his showing the organizational chart and showing you the different divisions between the shifts was to show you how each of these people is necessary and how they're deployed and how there is no redundancy.
Right.
And it's very important to us to make sure at any time that the public safety is well taken care of, and you have to have some backup people. It also, this shortfall of number of people on right now and out sick does explain in large part this overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And the ideal situation is not to have so many people out at once and not have to dip into overtime as heavily. So looking forward, we're really hoping when everybody gets trained and back on force that the overtime will go down and we will have a full component. And if you have any questions, if you see any redundancy or any people in this organizational chart that you think are not necessary, we'd certainly love to hear about it. But I can assure you that I and my colleagues on the board look at that continually.
Mm-hmm.
So just for people who might not know, Tina Weiner is the chair of the Police Commission, is also here to answer questions. I think to your point, Joe, about looking at it, I think it's really, the reason you asked to have it on the agenda, and you asked, and I think the reason it's important to have everyone here is to really ask any questions that you or others may have about the operation, the size. As the chief said, the size hasn't changed. I know Tony took a look
I
at the
did.
budget over time.
I compared the
As-
budget over time as a percentage of our budget, and over the past 10 years, it has not changed from about 6.1 to 6.3%. So it's
How
been
do you
very
get that
consistent.
number?
What's that?
How do you get that number?
It's not including benefits. That's just the police department budget as a percentage of our total budget.
Well, the police department budget is $3 million right now, right?
Right.
And our budget is what, not including schools?
I've got the figures right here. Hold on.
Why
It's
would
40.
you include schools?
Well, you could include the schools if you want.
I just
but
included
did
the total.
I
I
did my
didn't-
figures without schools. I don't, I don't know what he
Compared
used.
to other towns,
I
is
use
it
the entire total town budget.
Okay.
All the functions that we're responsible for funding through our
It doesn't
budget.
matter, it's just a different
Just so it's
percentage.
consistent.
Yeah,
though.
that's
Right, I'm just
correct.
trying to
Just
figure out the
looking at it
consistency of
historically.
what.
I
Just a
just use it
consistent
because
story.
town budget, it's part
Because
of
I
the
knew
town
these things.
budget, the schools
Yeah.
are out and outers, they do their thing and that, so I did mine, and it's 15% of the town budget,
Without
wi- without schools. Because we have a $20 million budget and it's $3 million, it's 15%, and that is,
You should, I'm sure you are aware, but just in case you're not, just for the record, that a good percentage of our budget is on
Contractual.
salaries. And it's, and
Well-
structural, and there's, we're very.
90% of it, 90% of it is
I think that's why
contractual.
we're.
Absolutely, it could-
It
it
There is
absolutely
in
could.
fact very little, I know this well, for 25 years serving on this board, there's very little flexible funds in it, and we've kept those very much in line.
well,
I think
that-
that's
that's
why
if
we're
you
looking at the
maintain,
size.
that's if you maintain the size of the department. So I'd like to just hand out this information that I've developed. It's not scientific, anybody can see it, it's off the internet. And it's just comparison of towns in the area with similar makeups and similar population. And it's a chart of their police budgets versus ours.
There's extras, or they wanted to see.
Yeah.
Are there extras there? Oh, yeah.
Here,
Okay.
because I think if you look at it, maybe it's a thought starter or a starter towards looking at, can we do something differently? I don't know. Our police department seems to be large in comparison to many towns in the area. And our per capita expense, based on 9,500 people in town, give or take, these are not to the, they're not scientific numbers, but it's a broad picture. We spend $314 per person on police services. And believe me, I'm all for police services and safety and all that. I'm just looking, this is informational to start a conversation, because there's towns in the area that are maintaining presumably safe areas with police services, and they're spending a whole lot less money than we are. So that's the way I see it. So what I was asking for is maybe a conversation to develop some of this information, and maybe we don't have to be, and maybe we're absolutely the way we should be. But just continuing because that's the way it's always been in the face of some of this comparison information, I think is not a prudent way to proceed, and particularly when we're gonna be asked to spend $5 or $6 million.
So what you draw from this is that we're spending too much on our police department, likely. I mean, is
That's
that
what I
your?
think anyone who reads this would draw.
Well, there are, I mean, this
Well,
has
I
certain
would
statistics here,
respond.
which
I don't know.
may or may not be absolutely accurate.
That's
We know
true.
the internet to be, but there are certain
true.
things about Woodbridge that we have to keep in mind. One is its geographic size versus its population is a little out of sync, because we're very large compared to the number of people. And that is particularly relevant, the chief can speak to this better than I, that if you only have 2 people on duty and one's at one end of town and one's at the other end of town, there's a long distance to go between. The other thing about Woodbridge that distinguishes it is just its location between 2 cities, and having 2 main arteries that are going between New Haven and Waterbury, which we have known to be very much drug runs.
I
So
understand.
that there, statistics are great, and I'm all for numbers, but there are certain things we have to understand about the town and our
Sure.
needs that
I
fill in.
totally agree. I'm just asking for this to be looked at, and if everyone agrees, for more inquiry, because to that point, Prospect is on 69 as well, and they spend $79 per person.
There-
And they're
That's
between-
state trooper.
They're state troopers.
I know,
State
I
trooper.
understand that, I
Okay.
understand. I put it, it's here, I understand. State trooper, there's other towns in the area that take.
I don't understand how Prospect can spend, I don't understand $79. It's a trooper.
Yeah, I know. Their police budget is $745,000 on a overall budget of 7.3. But I'm sorry, they have 9,400 people, and they spend $745,000. So if you do the math, it's $79 per capita. And part of that is because they use the trooper
Yeah, but there's-
program. I understand.
Well, absolutely, but there's a lot of different variables when you
Absolutely.
each one of these departments, Madison, they have a population that goes up, goes down. North Branford.
Well,
They're
it's
prob-
18
prob-
it's
probably about the
18
closest that we are to us, North Branford. And, you know, they're about at the same budget level.
Yeah, there's 3 million, they have 14,400 people in town. And they have a $3 million budget, and it equates to $208 per capita, and we're 314. And again, these are round numbers, they're not scientific, but and it could be that we're just where we need to be. But I'm just looking at this data and suggesting that maybe, given that, we may want to make that data scientific and put in some other variables, and it could stay just the way it is, and then we move forward. So I'm just sharing the data with the board and the folks who do a great job. I don't have a problem, really, trust me. And if I did, my big red Ford out there, I'm sure it'll be a marked vehicle going through town. And I've known Gene since we were like this, so there's no agenda here other than, hey, this is the data, and we can't keep budgets just going up and up and up, including our town
There's
budget.
a question, actually, and this has nothing, this is actually a little bit maybe off topic, and I've never completely understood, in a town like Bethany or Prospect that uses state troopers, does the town then, as a matter of their budget, pay the state, reimburse the state? In other words,
Great question, I don't know.
because
I believe they do.
Because if that's
I would
true-
imagine that's what
Subsidized by
happens.
the town.
well, because if that's true, if there's that contribution, then I would imagine that has to be counted as part of what they're actually spending on
Right, so it's,
police budget, so is that included in here?
as far as I know.
I mean, I don't know what this is, I don't know whose data it is,
I can tell you what
I
it
don't,
is, because all the backup is in here.
yeah, but I
You're
mean,
welcome to it,
but I don't,
it's-
I don't know what this is.
It's information from town budgets of all these towns that are on the internet. They're all up there.
Okay, but the
You can go-
variables, like I'm just asking about, for instance, if there's a contribution or a reimbursement to the state for troopers, or.
I presume that if Prospect, for instance, they have 17 sworn officers plus one trooper
Right.
that participate in the trooper program, the information that I could glean off of their website.
Right,
Again, I'm not
That's what
purporting it
that-
to
okay.
be gospel or scientific,
Right,
but
no, I
that's
get
what I found, okay?
okay,
And their budget shows 745,000, so I presume that that's their police budget for all police services, and they pay the state as a trooper and so forth. I could be wrong.
I don't know.
So you went to each town's website, is that where this comes
Sure,
from?
yeah,
Each town?
yeah.
Okay, so,
I got the population off of Wikipedia, it's not that scientific, but I think it's pretty, it's accurate enough to give a picture of what we have.
If I can ask a question, do you have, or do you, at any time, maybe so many years, do you have any data that shows size or scope or comparison similar to this, or maybe any other areas that you're
Did you read
giving?
the study that I
Yeah,
provided?
I
you?
did, I
Okay,
did.
so-
In some cases, it has changed, but the overall chart of the department has not, the needs and the wants. I mean, like I said, there is so many variables that could go into trying to find out whether we're compatible with Prospect. I mean, they have much less officers that are working. I think they have 5 resident troopers, constables, as you would say, that work in that town. It's the quality of the police work that you want to provide for this town, which you have to look at too.
No question.
You know, when I look at this and I read it, I think this is a good time to gather data, and you know, Joe's saying this isn't scientific. You know, that's why I'm wondering if there's data you get either from the state or in some kind of surveys done by the police themselves. But the reason I ask is, and I think the reason it comes up now is because in this year's budget was the request for an additional officer. So that has the question of what is the right number. There was also the request for the future of the new facility, and I think we all agree the facility needs upgrades. You know, whether it needs 13 officers or 7, I can't tell you. You know, based on the size of the police department, but I can tell you, it's clear it needs some upgrades. But also, you know, when Officer Stewart, when you gave your presentation, one of the things I found striking was your talk of how many officers were either at that retirement age or had some injuries, right? And, you know, I always look at it as, you know, if there's an adjustment that needs to be made, if we need to increase because of how many injuries and things we have, then we certainly need the data and we can look at that. if we thought, well, this may be a little bit large for our size, no better way than, I come from the business world that says attrition is the best way. We don't want to release anybody, and that's not our goal here. So I thought this is a very good time to talk about size and scope, because we are about to face building, either a new building or building repairs. We do have questions on, do we need more officers, as your request was? Can we do with less? I certainly don't purport to know those answers, but I thought you may have some data, or like the one you gave us, the report, which was a little dated, but if there's anything that the state does, or that you get, or can provide us, just to show where we are in some kind of comparison.
Let
One
me make one-
thing
excuse me.
is, when we look at the budgets as a commission, if it's not apples and oranges, and it's not, if you can't really compare the building needs and the size of the police force, which is totally based on public safety. And what we do when we have kept the size of the department is because we looked at it carefully and say, how many do we need to make sure that at any point in time, this community is properly served and has enough protection. And I would never, there may be reasons to change the size, the capital budget or even the size of the force, though, clearly, we don't think so at this point. But I would never make a trade-off on that.
We're not asking for it.
And I really ask you to be, to think about, with all the statistics and everything else that you see, that remember that this commission is charged with public safety, and that is our first priority.
And thank you very much for that, and I agree with you totally, but, so I would then ask for, if that's the case, I'd like to see all those variables and statistics and so forth that would lead us or me to conclude that we need to spend what we're spending when these other towns aren't doing it. So there has to be a reason. If
I'd
there's a
like to
reason,
make a
then we do it.
suggestion. I don't think this board should be micromanaging the commissions. This is how we operate in town. We have commissions, and I know how conscientiously this commission works and looks at all those things. But you've raised questions, you've looked at other towns and raised questions, so what I'd like to suggest is that, Chief, if you'd like to take a look at a few of these, take a look at the towns, and I'm sure, put in the factors that you think make a difference and have your commission take a look at it.
When you
Tony?
compare budgets, you have to also just make sure you understand each budget and whether they include dispatch or not, whether they include vehicle costs or not.
I looked at
Whether
that,
they
'cause
did you
some
look at
break
that?
it out, then I
Because some
went to the
don't, some
total,
do.
yeah.
The trooper programs, obviously, there could be a cost on the state level that they're not absorbing at the town level. There's a lot of factors
Right.
in order to really get an honest comparison.
Exactly,
And
I
Karen
know
would like to say something.
There's also, I can't emphasize the location being enough, because even just today, there are a great many right in the area looking to us, great many banks. There was a robbery today, I believe. So that, Prospect may not be, is not as close to New Haven. So these are things we have to keep in mind, and if you can shed any light on how we could possibly manage with fewer people, we'd love to hear that.
Today would have been a great day for you to do a ride along.
I'll
See
do
the
it.
absolute chaos that goes along with these type of investigations and. Yeah.
Just in the gathering of all this information, is the town a member of CCM? Because I think this is.
That's what I just said.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I just said that to Tony not 2 seconds ago. You're
And, and they take in all those stats.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I was wondering if they
Yeah.
get
There's
those.
a willingness
yeah.
to.
Well, you could ask for
Absolutely.
anything. I think it's one of the most valuable resources
Exactly.
and so well worth the money. And
Yeah.
they take in
I
all
could work with the chief too.
And
Yes, why,
Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, get some information.
Okay.
Yeah, get
Their
the
information is
data.
probably better.
It is.
Not probably, it is better.
It is better.
Because that is my name.
I
And they
admit it.
probably take that into consideration. I think that this community, like each one, has unique,
Right, correct.
attributes.
Right.
Like with us, we have, like you said, the large areas and the concentration of banks right near highways, and that all has to be considered. Now, this is the full complement
Karen's
if everyone was.
Yes, perfect work, yes.
Yeah. So at any given time, whether for any other reason that you're out, you'd be reduced and you'd be juggling.
Right.
The other officer that you were speaking of, would that be unassigned to fit in your, so this would go?
The one that we're asking for, the extra
Yes.
officer, the extra officer would take the place of Officer Lynch, who is their officer, because we lost him for 12 months a year. We don't have him. He's not one of, I mean, you know, if we needed him in an emergency, obviously we can use him, but we try to leave him at the school 12 months a year.
So in that way, the actual change would squad A have, would.
I mean, right now we're 3 injured officers and 3 are in the academy. So there's from 26 right off the bat, we're working with 20.
No, that I
From top
understand,
to
I'm just saying, if
That extra officer will be put in patrol where needed.
Like, you'd have 3 on
He could be unassigned, he could be anywhere on the 3 shifts,
Okay,
he or she.
that's the first time I heard anyone say she.
Well, I mean,
Thank you.
Matthew Gilbert, one of the members of the police commission. I just wanted to convey to the board, first of all, a lot of support for the review of the budget. We do go over it very, very carefully, and with a fine-tooth comb, I review it with the deputy chief before, and Dr. Skeletor, before it goes to the commission, before we vote on it. In preparation for tonight's meeting, I had asked what were the concerns of the board. So I'm grateful that we've got the concerns. We'll look into it. I can't imagine from what I've been doing for the last few years on the board that there are using too many officers based on what I've seen, what I have been talking to in the public. But I do welcome the concerns. We'll look into them carefully. I'm fairly confident that it will come back that the board and the police department has an appropriate number. But if it's not, we're not driven by any agenda either. But I was confused as to what the concerns were by the board. So I'm happy that I have some
It
concerns.
seems like this was the right timing for the concerns because of the budget request and what's happening with the new building or.
One of the items about the capital budget improvement, that's been put into the proposal to keep it on the agenda. I've been a member of the town now since 1999. These capital budget items have taken eons to get through the process. I can't see it happening in the next 5 years, to be honest. I'm thinking, we're hoping for 10 would be, I would love to have it if it was appropriate, but a realistic approach would be 10 years down the road.
You know, and that's great, but if we do a little exercise and we determine the scope and it is what it is, that's great, it's smaller, that's great, then maybe we accelerate that, because, I mean, we can all agree that the facility maybe isn't the best around,
Yeah,
okay?
I would
So,
say that.
so all we're saying is, hey, before we go ahead and make a decision that says, hey, we're gonna make renovations there of some sort, let's take a look at the whole thing. It could be just fine.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you.
adding that. I think we have a plan going forward. We have the questions. Tony will work with you, Chief, and whoever you designate. Thank you to all the board members.
Thank you.
Karen and Chief and Jeff, thank you very much.
I'm a mark.
Thank you.
I read 4 years
There were extras. You want them back or?
You can, yeah.
I don't want them.
No, I'm sure. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Now we're at Town Council's report. We've had a preview.
We have a little introduction to my report, which is the ethics complaint filed by Warner C. Pine III against Dominic Thomas. And that's the way he filed the complaint. So I just want to, the Ethics Commission met on February 19th, and we had all 5 members of the Ethics Commission were present. Dominic Thomas, who is a member and who was the subject of this complaint, recused himself. He was at the meeting and did give some testimony as to the circumstances surrounding the complaint, and but did not vote and did not participate other than explaining to the rest of the commission what his role in the 2 incidents that were cited in the complaint. The other members of the commission are Father Ginelli, who is the chair of the commission, as you know, the priest in the local church here, Al Smith, who's the managing partner at Murtha Kalina, a law firm, a statewide law firm in New Haven, Rob Burke, a lawyer with an office, I think, in West Haven, and Claire Coleman, a lawyer and a member of the firm of Wigan and Dana. So these people were very capable and competent to look at our ethics ordinance and make a determination, and their determination was, as in your packet and in the minutes of the meeting as presented by Al Smith, They found no wrongdoing whatsoever on the part of Mr. Thomas, and they recommended that the complaint did not contain sufficient cause to consider to be a violation of our Ethics Commission. There were 2 items you know about that Mr. Pine has already talked about it, two issues raised. One issue raised with regard to the ordinance itself, which frankly has not been the subject of any complaints, I think, since the history of the ordinance being adopted by the town. There's, to my knowledge, only 3 complaints ever brought involving the Ethics Commission or our Code of Conduct. This particular provision in the code has never been challenged or never been the subject of any other complaints, to my knowledge. So there was some question about the ambiguity of a couple of the words in the language in the provision that Mr. Pine cited as being violated. The Ordinance Committee has already met tonight before this meeting and will take it under advisement, is going to ask for a letter, an official letter from the Ethics Commission describing their action and why they did what they did. They did send the minutes, but we don't have the official letter, which is required under the Code of Ethics. And also an explanation of more precisely, what they consider to be the unclear and perhaps ambiguous language of the ordinance. And once we get that, then I suspect that the Ordinance Committee would want to meet again to see whether any changes are warranted. That's my report.
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
You said it hasn't come up but more than a couple of times, if that, the wording.
No, this is the first time this particular wording has ever been.
Is this the first time that a member of the Ethics Commission, Board of Ethics
Absolutely.
Commission, has been
Yes.
part of the complaint itself?
Yeah. There's
Okay.
only
But
been,
there's only been
two or three other
Right, so- And this is
complaints.
the first time it regarded an actual member of the board itself?
Yes.
Okay, or commission.
So my question is, does anybody in town know what the Board of Selectmen role is in this process?
I think it's spelled out in the actual ordinance, and I don't know if I have the ordinance here. Sherry, do you have a copy of the ordinances? We can look at that, and it's specific as to what, well, maybe, do you have it?
I'm looking, I think it's in the ethics, it's in the,
Well, it's in the ordinances.
I don't think so. I thought it was in the Ethics Committee establishment.
Yes, but that's part of the
No,
ordinances.
there's 2. There's the establishment of the
Right,
Board
it's-
of the Board of
it's
Ethics.
it's in the
And then there's the
Right.
Code of Ethics.
Right.
Right, it's not in the ordinance, it's in the,
So if you have it, we
I'm
can
trying
take a
to-
quick look at
I'm
it.
trying to find it. Because it's, here it is, Board of Ethics.
Okay.
Which is 7515 establishment. 7518C, no elected, that talks about the fact that only the BOS, the Board of Selectmen, can serve up any discipline or remedy or anything, any such thing. So the ethics board advises us what they decide. So I'm only asking because I don't think it's clear in it talks about the fact that the Board of Selectmen can do something. If not, but there's no, but I don't know what, so I'm asking not to be a wise guy. Does anybody know what the process is or how the Board of Selectmen interact in this
Are
process?
you referring to the section in the charter or the code that says that the Board of Selectmen can remove individuals from boards and
No,
commissions?
that's all
So let me
totally
take a look and see what you're doing.
Joe's asking if we have any appellate authority here.
No, well, I don't know what the authority, I just see I'm reading
Petition
in the establishment of the Board of Ethics.
So which one are you looking at
Well,
here?
way down the bottom, the
one?
last one.
This one?
Starts talking about following a hearing by the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
So, but it doesn't say how you get to a hearing, what you do. So my only question is,
What's the process?
what authority or process do we have in this regard?
But Joe, it's in
And
the
it's not
sec-
even related to this.
No,
don't-
I know.
I'm just,
It's in this section that's entitled Board of Ethics.
no, yeah, Board of
Yeah,
Ethics.
and then
correct.
duties and powers of the Board of Ethics.
Correct.
And it says in the section that the Board of Ethics renders advisory opinions.
Correct.
And this is the board's power if disposition of any such charge shall be limited to a written report
Correct.
on the concurrence of a member to the Board of Selectmen as
Correct.
to whether or not there exists reasonable cause to believe that a violation of the code has occurred.
Correct.
Then it goes on to say, in the Board of Ethics, no elected or appointed official employee of the town shall be subject to penalty or discipline for any violation of the code, except upon a finding by the Board of Selectmen. So the Board of Ethics,
Right.
the Ethics Commission comes to the Selectmen and
Right.
said, there's been we feel there's a violation. Then the Board of Selectmen has the power to determine whether there, after a hearing, whether there has been a violation and to issue appropriate conduct.
So I don't disagree with you, although it doesn't, that process is not necessarily clear in there. But my then question would be, because you're saying if the advisory opinion is that there's a violation, the BOS can then have a hearing and censure someone, for instance,
Yes.
if that's the right
Yes.
way. But if the ethics board decides there's no violation, you're saying then that the BOS, then that's it, the BOS has no province at all or no authority at all? See, I
No.
don't buy that.
But I'm not saying that.
Okay.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying.
So how does the BOS act then?
Let me explain my version of this.
Okay.
And again, I'm not an expert, but I've been working with this thing for a while.
Right.
The Board of Selectmen, if the Board of Ethics comes back and says that there's no violation, I think that basically is the end of the story there. However, the Board of Selectmen, in another charter provision, has the right to remove, punish, whatever, members of boards and commissions of the town. There's nothing to say that you or the Board of Selectmen can vote, even if it wasn't an ethics complaint. You can
Correct.
say on
For
our
other
own.
reasons, I understand.
That's where the Board of Selectmen really has the ultimate say in disciplining members of boards and commissions. But it is not upon a complaint that was decided by the Board of Ethics, which found no violation. That takes you out of that.
I don't see that there.
Well, it's
I
in the
don't think-
section.
well,
We can
But
talk
that's-
about
suggest
it.
We'll
there's
talk
no-
offline,
right,
but
if you-
yeah. But I mean, I respect that, but I think it's unfair.
Okay. So we can
So
talk
the
about
answer to my question is, if the Board of Ethics finds no violation, there is no further action by the Board of Selectmen with respect to that decision. If we wanted to act, we have to go to the other section.
Yes.
If that's
And
the
you can
answer,
do it.
that's
Yes.
it? Okay.
Okay, good.
If that's what you believe
Thank
the
you.
answer would be?
Good.
Okay. At least we know.
Jerry, anything else in your?
No, that's all I have.
You did Lauren's part. The next item,
Thanks for
Is-
bringing it.
an appointment to the State Tourism Council. I received an email from the State Tourism Council for the Central Region. A few years ago, maybe it was just a year or two ago, the state changed our tourism districts and reduced the number. I think there may have been 5 or 7. Reduced it to 3 vertical tranches of the state, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense for tourism. You know, we go up to Enfield, Hartford, and all the way down to New Haven. I think that tells you something about how they were viewing the tourism districts. Nevertheless, we are in a multi-town district, and we were asked to appoint someone. Really, I looked on the website, and it seems that the main function of this tourism board is to keep a website with our local businesses and our local restaurants and keep it up to date. As I looked at it, it was clearly not up to date. So I would like to appoint Betsy Yagla, our Assistant Administrative Officer, who's going to be doing a lot of our website work. And it's a good opportunity for Betsy to get to know the community and know what's in business and what isn't. So that's my proposal. Thank
Second.
you. Any questions or discussion? Betsy, do you accept? No.
One
Yes,
comment or
Tony.
question. So is this something she could work a little bit with what the website that the EDC has started to develop? Can she use at least their data and have access to it so that maybe make life a little easier?
Oh, of course.
For her to-
She is.
Yeah, I'll do
Of course.
cross-checking.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, Betsy. Okay, number 13 is the town clerk's report. Is there a motion to accept the town clerk's
So
report?
moved.
Second, any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, we have, Mrs. Shaw is catching up on all the minutes. And so we have here minutes from November 13th. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes. Beth, will you second that?
I'll second it.
Questions?
I'm not even gonna share what I found.
Oh,
So my.
Come on, that's not my life.
Okay, you want me to? Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry I do this.
It's okay.
Page 6 of
We
9.
need you.
It's Mr. Parsons, the bottom. Not Parson?
5 cents, yes.
That's it.
Page 9?
Page 6 of 9.
Embarrassed.
I think I can vote for these minutes.
I know.
Yeah, on big waivers, part B, it says Mr. Parsons, and it needs the S on Parsons.
Leave it to
Okay,
Beth.
thank you, Beth. Anything else?
I'm just trying to.
I'm not
All
gonna
those in
show up
favor?
anymore, I'm gonna leave
Well,
when
aye.
minutes come up.
Leave it to Beth.
Okay, the next item is executive session. So we'll ask everyone to please leave the room and turn off the cameras, and we'll Okay, we are now out of the executive session, during which we received an update on the MDM Manchetti litigation. No votes were taken, and we discussed the pending settlement of the litigation between the Fire Commission and the Inland Wetlands Agency. The Board of Selectmen have looked at the language that was agreed upon by both parties today, and like the parties to the litigation, there are aspects of this agreement that we like, and there are aspects of it we don't like, as in any litigation settlement, but we want to make it known that we support the parties going ahead with the settlement in accordance with the terms agreed upon today by the parties. No votes were taken in executive session. Thank you. Okay, next item is the first selectman's report. Try to speak quickly. Barry Wolf has resigned from the Economic Development Commission. He sent a very nice letter about his time on the commission and complimenting the members of the commission for the hard work they do. His business makes it impossible for him to continue. There is not a vacancy, however, because we've learned that the Economic Development Commission is supposed to have 8 members, and we had 9. So we are now down to the correct number. Tony and I have talked about the Economic Development Commission and agreed that I will follow the commission for a while now. There's a lot going on there, and Tony has a plate more than full, more than his share of commissions. So, I'm sorry? No, not at all. There was also an issue, I think it was at our last meeting, about calling the question. And I did some research on it, which I have distributed to the board, and I want to say that we did follow what in my research has been called a fairly common misconception, that after someone calls the question, debate immediately ceases and the question goes to a vote. That's not the correct procedure, and I'd like to read what it is and state that it is the procedure we'll follow in the future. Any member who wishes to force an end to debate must first obtain the floor by being duly recognized to speak by the chair, and must then move the previous question. Such a motion must be seconded and then adopted by a 2/3 vote or by unanimous consent. So that is our process, and I think everybody knows that now and is good with it. So thank goodness for the internet. I wanted to give an update to the public. I suppose the public might still be watching, about the construction project. The Department of Transportation is doing work at the intersection of routes 63 and 67. It's authorized to begin on April 1st, 2014. Includes a light at the intersection, turn lane improvement, drainage, and pavement modification. So, and preliminary work may begin prior to the effective start date. Areas that are impacted are within several hundred feet to all approaches of the intersection. So just want to make sure that people know that this is going to be happening, and the expected time for the project is 8 to 10 months. Wow. United Illuminating has sent me a letter. It's in the packets, but I also want to announce this to the public, reminding everyone that it is UI policy, and that is in accordance with National Electric Safety Codes, that there not be any foreign objects attached to UI poles. Organizations, individuals, no one can be posting things on UI poles. It's a matter of safety for individuals who have to go up the poles or work on the poles, and also important for reliable electric service. So if anyone asks you, it's not appropriate to put anything on electric poles. I'll just quickly run down some of the major activities and events that I've attended since February 12th. We had Wear Red Day here at Town Hall to raise money for the Heart Walk, which will be on May 3rd at Savin Rock. I attended Congresswoman DeLauro's meeting of area mayors. Unfortunately, the main thing about that day was the unbelievable snowstorm. It was very hard for people to get there and get back, but Congresswoman DeLauro gave an update on the federal budget and impact it might have for towns in the region. Much of what she talked about is not a huge impact for our town, but it was a good opportunity for mayors and first selectmen to get together. As you all know, on February 19th, we had a public information meeting on the Country Club of Woodbridge. As many have noted, it was quite negative, but there was no uniformity of negativity. Some people wanted more development, some wanted less. Some thought we were going too quickly, some thought we were going too slowly. Some thought we should focus more on finances, and some less. And right now I'm working with Tony and Betsy to make sure we have a good fact sheet. A lot of questions have come up, make sure we have the answers and complete fact sheets. On February 23rd, I attended the Blue and Gold Banquet at Assumption Church, which is the crossing over ceremony for Cub Scouts to become Boy Scouts, and they also choose which troop they're moving up into. A very, very cute ceremony for the kids there. I attended the SCROG meeting. Betsy was there with me. The state comptroller gave an update and talked about his initiatives for budget transparency. I was also made a member of the executive committee, which adds another meeting, but it's the same day as the regular meetings. We do get benefit from, again, working with our other mayors and first selectmen. I know Tony is part of the group that's working on purchasing cooperatives, so we can save the town money. One of the big issues that was discussed was Metro North and what's happening with the trains and the accidents. And the report was that Metro North is focusing on safety, even if it's at the expense of timeliness of trains, which caused quite a bit of consternation among the mayors. And probably there'll be a meeting with Metro North executives to see about moving ahead on both fronts. March 1st was the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association Snowflake Dance, and it was very well attended and lively, and I think everybody had a great time there. On March 7th, I was at the Rotary Breakfast, and they were particularly interested in solar opportunities. Betsy is working on that, trying to pull together ideas that have come to us and other ideas that she's developing, including residential opportunities. On March 9th, I attended the Massaro Farm annual meeting. Others here attended that as well. So the bylaws were amended to make the first selectman an ex officio member of the Massaro board, something that I think many of us have for a while thought would be a very good idea, since we own the property and we support the farm. So that change was made. And yesterday was the Senior Center St. Patrick's Day luncheon. A few of us were there and helped serve lunch to the seniors. I want to mention one other thing. I don't have it. I don't think it's in the packet, but I can send it to you. We have a situation in town that I think you may all know about with a residence for developmentally disabled individuals who are housed there through a grant from the Department of Developmental Services, I believe it's called, DDS. And the neighbors were very concerned because while generally the identity of the people in the houses is protected under HIPAA and other protections, 3 of the residents, I'm not sure if it's 2 or 3 right now, are sex offenders. And so their identities are public and are published. And 2 of them were pedophiles, and the neighbors were very concerned about it. The problem was brought to the attention of Senator Crisco and Representative Clarities, who are supporting a bill that would not allow sex offenders to live near schools, but it really does not address the issue that our neighborhood is facing. So I submitted testimony to amend a bill pending before the General Assembly that would require DDS to make public its rules and regulations and safety procedures in homes that house sexual offenders who are already publicly identified on the website. And that's the first selectman's report. We'll move now to liaison reports. Lawrence?
At the Woodbridge Board of Education, the priority now is logistics with construction imminent. I think, Tony, to your point earlier, they are eager to start as quickly as they can after school. There will be staging and preparations so that they can move forward right after school is dismissed for the summer. I think that's why it was important to give the first selectman authorization to go forward on behalf of the town. And that may mean relocating summer programs and so anyway, so that's really what the board is focused on now. There were no major presentations at the last meeting. And I was at the Amity Board of Education just the other night, and Tony, maybe you've been briefed by now. The Amity Board, after lengthy discussion, decided to go forward with 2 of the 4 potential budget increases. 3 of 5, I guess, if you want. Special education costs, special education transportation, and then their healthcare reserve fund. They decided to pass on an OPEB contribution for next year, and they passed on the medical savings, the medical reserve account, and the OPEB. They're going forward with technology and special ed, but it will impact our town budget with an increase, potential increase. So that was the big thing.
Thank you. I attended the police commission meeting last week. Few highlights. The first, that they've identified a need for a carport on the side of the building facing Center Road. Obviously, if they were to get the big project that we all keep talking about, this would be part of it, but this is one that is becoming of increasing need, I think, because by the time they dig out their cars in the winter, which are covered in snow just like everybody else's car, you can imagine the time lost and everything else. So this was a subject of some discussion. There were no specifics to it that are yet ready to come before this board. They ratified some budget changes that I gathered they had made in documents that are going to the Board of Finance.
Correct.
And in their capacity as traffic authority, they approved, remember the filmmaker, the other filmmaker?
The other one, right.
Right? We are becoming a movie hub.
Yeah.
So that's going forward. That's about it. Thank you.
That's Hollywood.
That's very good.
I didn't hear it. Was it good?
Hollywood Bridge.
Hollywood Bridge,
okay.
Cecil Bill,
It was so long ago, it seems, February 24th, the Fire Commission meeting. They talked about the quick response time for the kitchen fire at B'nai Jacob and how great that was. They did discuss the urgent need for a ladder truck and that they will be forming a truck committee soon. And they held ice rescue training at Lake Dawson. 25 to 30 guys showed up in that. And just keep your eyes out. I think sometime in April, they're planning the Eva Block Memorial Fire Safety Day. I couldn't make the last meeting Monday night. I had another commitment. That was a special meeting. Plan and zoning, March 3rd. 2 hearings for applications for home office permits were continued till April. And the commission continued the hearing regarding the application for proposed amendment to the zoning regs related to access to properties in abutting towns. That's been out there for a long time. And then they had an extensive work session regarding the update of the town plan of conservation and development, and Representatives Malone and McBroom were there. And that's it. That's my report.
Inland wetlands, anybody interested in an update? No? Okay. I don't think so. Woodbridge Library Commission, you may know this, I guess they're having problems with the elevator.
Oh,
And
I didn't know
It
that.
was actually fixed. Just that last
Old
meeting.
news.
What was that meeting?
Well, if you fixed it, that's great, but this is March 10th. And the elevator is having problems, and replacement will be requested in next year's capital budget.
For an elevator?
Yes, sir. So that's
Is
my,
that the same information I have?
that's my liaison report.
A whole new elevator?
I didn't go to the human, I couldn't make human services. I didn't actually go to that either, but I had the minutes. I thought we might wanna know that, if you didn't already.
Okay, first I'll start with Coupop. Coupop was canceled, actually, since I've been named liaison, they haven't had a meeting.
Oh, so you don't have.
Mostly
somebody
weather related, but for one reason or another, I think their last 3 months have all been canceled, mostly because snowstorms came. So there was nothing to report there. Recreation, you basically heard, there was a special meeting the other night. They did have a meeting since last we met. Most of the talk has been spent on the CCW pool and them trying to iron out details, anything from salaries and lifeguard payments, time spent, and very detail oriented, and hopefully they're getting a good handle on that. Conservation, looking forward to working with the 10-year plan. They're also been looking at these possible grants and what impact or whatever they may have, going hand in hand with the land trust was talking about, looking at that one and a few others. Economic development is moving forward, trying to get more people involved with the website. They're also trying to move forward with a possible ambassador program, and that's being ironed out right now. They also had a special meeting, a special subcommittee meeting a couple weeks ago, and there was some discussion further there about the ambassador program. And that's really my report.
Thank you. Would there be a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Totally.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Good